Oliver asked me to speak a little bit about the future, the possible future, and as you know, as we all know, it's quite hard to predict the future, especially at this place. You know, imagine 30 years ago, how would have been the prediction of the future right next to the Tränenpalast, the central department for controlling people leaving East and West Germany. So I always hesitate to predict future, because it's impossible. However, I will at least outline a little bit what we can foresee. I'm a software engineer as well, and at Hasso Plattner Institute we run 4 programs, bachelor and master, basically in computer science. It's called IT Systems Engineering, as we put focus on engineering aspects of software engineering. About 1,000 students right now, a little bit growing currently. 25 chairs in computer science. So we have to find good programs for our students, and then you start thinking about the future, because what will they need during the next decades? For me, it's more or less irrelevant. I'm a dinosaur, and insofar it's not relevant for me. Of course, it's interesting for me. So I have to tell I would like to tell 2 stories. Let's start with the first one. Imagine a big software system, maybe one you are responsible for. And it's managed, it's handled, it's programmed, it's tested by many people involved, maybe hundreds or even thousands of people. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this type of system, I guess. So you can imagine the system as a kind of landscape of components. Many components, software components, interacting, somehow interrelated, interconnected. We're having different histories, different designs, different software architectures, but somehow more or less seamlessly operating on a core topic. Now the question is regarding generative AI, of course, that's the key point. How can we proceed? Is there anything to change? Should we do it in another way? At this point, I'm almost sure, regarding my prediction, everything will change. Within 5 years, 10 years, software development will be completely different. Give you an indication why I believe this. Generative AI is aware of, we are talking about consciousness, is aware of everything that has been programmed, at least as long as it is encoded in GitHub. So the world's best programmer will be the machine. The machine, to be honest, is much better in programming machines than humans. It's a simple fact, maybe, in a few years scientifically proven. Machines can program machines in a much more effective and efficient way, as they remember perfectly all the past, all the hundreds of millions of lines of codes that have been programmed so far. So if we assume that artificial intelligence is an excellent programmer, then the question is, how can we initiate this approach for existing large systems of these different heterogeneous components? And That's possible. Not all components in current systems are very easily accessed and transformed by generative AI. So we have to find the right ones to start with. These are typical small modules, modules more or less close to the user interface arena or more or less to the data management arena, not the core algorithms. Core algorithms, for example, in embedded software for brakes, this is hard to be programmed by generative AI at the moment. Maybe it will change. But for many ordinary tasks, we can assume that generative AI will do it much better. So the question is, strategically speaking, how can we prepare that step? And at HPI, we are looking into a very simple approach. We thought, well, first of all, modules have to become much smaller, because large modules are difficult for AI. But small modules are can be handled much easier. And each module has to be specified in a much more formal way regarding its interface, regarding its constraints, regarding the guarantees the module gives to the outside world. Insofar, we foresee a next generation of software development that emphasizes the formal declaration of module interfaces, application programming interfaces, for example, that describe perfectly the kind of service the module provides. And we foresee that we have to specify as humans an awful amount of tests. However, we will not focus anymore on the implementation. We let implement. And then we test if the implementation reaches the quality level we want to reach. If not, we let them generate more variants and versions of this black box module. And we always check whether it fulfills all the constraints and all the regulations, all the expectations we have for this module. If we are not satisfied with the quality, we might want to trigger maybe 1 million implementations for this module. Somewhere we will find at least a suboptimal solution. And to generate 1 million implementations of a module takes minutes. Insofar, we are we foresee a good future for the software development, because the implementations generative AI can produce simply are much better in all dimensions regarding all aspects of software quality in the near future. At the moment, let's talk about ChatGPT 4. Let's assume ChatGPT 7 or 8. Yeah? So we are still in this progress, but it can be foreseen that this works perfectly. Certain parts can possibly not done in the next year's core algorithms, as I already mentioned, especially if it comes to physics, for example, laws of physics. At this point, the human will be much better even in the near future. Yeah, it will be better as humans can understand better the backgrounds of certain contexts. However, if we look at ordinary contexts, the machine will do it much better. Oh, this was the first story. Generative AI, implementing modules. However, humans have to specify modules in a much different way. Instead of doing the implementation, we will possibly focus on specifying formally the module's behavior and guarantees, etc. Second story. Who used ChatGPT for exploratory data analysis, that is uploading an Excel and writing some stupid questions about the contents of the Excel? Okay. ChatGPT is a good example, just for this paradigm, let's call it, how systems and approaches change. Imagine you have a large data collection, or terribly large, yeah? Millions of lines and I don't know how many columns. And typically what you do, you ask technical stuff to implement a kind of transformation, to implement a new algorithm, to find some insights into this data mess. Now, and some of you already know this, you can ask ChatGPT to do this for you. So, ChatGPT, here's the Excel data set. Can you please cluster all the selling data entries for this 500,000 lines, and can you identify outliers regarding the geographic position of sale and the amount of the corresponding business deal? Maybe this question, this prompt is not really a good one because it's somehow fuzzy. Yeah? I should be more precise. This would at least help ChatGPT. Okay, this is what we all know, but now the key question is what happens next? And I'm not sure if all of you have already traced this. If I tell ChatGPT, please seek for or analyze, blah, blah, what happens? ChatGPT, based on its own large language model, transforms my prompt into a software specification, which is not visible, not accessible. Based on this software specification, instantaneously, it generates program code. That can be somehow downloaded sometimes, not always, but sometimes. This code it generated based on my prompt is typically, for example, written in JavaScript. And this snippet, this JavaScript runs on a server. As input, it takes the data I uploaded. It runs the script, receives the results, interprets the results, and transforms these insights into natural language, and this is what I get back. So once again, I prompt something to the system, and then I get a natural language response. However, in between, my prompt was transformed into a software specification, software was written, software was executed, and the results have been retransformed into the domain of natural language. One minor point, and this is a very interesting point from my perspective, that JavaScript, based on whatever I ask for, uses and this is a little bit magic. The best libraries and frameworks, for example, from mathematics or from statistical data analysis, and you know in the Java world, JavaScript world, there is an enormous collection of very sophisticated, sometimes very specific tools. And it always, based on the specific question I have, it knows what to use. Sometimes you can even tell ChatGPT, please use this package or that library. And this would be practically impossible for my stuff. For example, if I would ask my assistant, sometimes I do it, but more for pedagogical reasons, please analyze this data set, yeah? And say pretend to analyze it manually, but I'm sure they use ChatGPT as well. However, these people, even having an enormous experience, are not, just they would not have the time to seek for hundreds of possible frameworks and libraries to find the right functionality. To give you a more concrete example, recently I asked ChatGPT for clusters in large dimensional data sets, and I was impressed because it used the right dimensionality reduction algorithm. It's like PCA, but there are much more sophisticated ones around. And I said, well, this is shocking because that's really cool. That's the right algorithm. And it's extremely difficult to use this library because you have to learn how to use it, hundreds of parameters. And all this happens within 1 or 2 or 3 seconds. If ChatGPT is not satisfied with the results or detects that the JavaScript doesn't run well, it generates another one. Yeah, so it's kind of it's a perfect strategy, yeah, to handle mistakes, or sometimes generation fails. Yeah, so this is the second story. I do foresee that at a certain point, certain kinds of services, programs, will not be implemented as a static software system. They might be implemented in the moment where you need them. So you will never have any more a static software system and a large developer team always taking care of that. For certain aspects, software will be always instantiated, generated, designed, tested in the very moment you need it. And this is what ChatGPT already does. Yeah, you should have a look and interceive this artifacts it generates when you ask about some table Excel data analysis. It makes a lot of fun. Yeah, these are the 2 stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Jürgen Döllner from HPI.